Welcome to this video, round 6 of Tata Steel 2013, and again I'll do a complete round review, 7 games, and I had some remarks about the first couple of videos about the order in which I do the games. Some people suggested that I should do the most interesting games first and do the somewhat less exciting at the end. I'm really not sure how to do that. What I'm going to do is I'll start with the less interesting, but do them very quickly, and then go to the real main parts of this round. Okay, let's start with the game Nakamura against Lamy. We had Kaukan defense, and Nakamura playing the advance. So very standard moves. Knight c8 is not so standard. I'm not sure if this is a new idea. Black immediately gets this knight out of the way and prepares bishop e7 and castling. And sometimes this knight can be redeployed on b6, so it's not such a bad post at the moment. And in fact, we see that white is trying to get some play in the center with c4. A couple of moves later, white exchanged this bishop. And now we have an interesting transformation. Black took with the f-pawn, which for some people might look a bit weird, as you are taught to capture towards the center. Here's an exception. F takes g6 is far stronger than the h-pawn recapture. The problem is, if you take with the h-pawn, then I can put it on the board. Long term, you can get some problems on the king side with various attacking ideas. One is for white to get the queen all the way over to the h-file and then put something on g5, knight g5 threatening mate. And this can be tricky, because with this pawn formation you can never move one of those pawns. If you move the f-pawn, then e6 will get terminally weak. And the other big issue is h4, h5. In the game, after the f-pawn recapture, you notice that immediately this rook gets play. h4, h5 is not such a big deal. You can just take it and there's no open h-file. And white also cannot easily attack h7, because black can also set up in this fashion. So f takes g6 is much stronger. In fact, this whole formation that we get here is very similar to a pawn structure that usually rises in the Slav main line, with d takes c4, a4, bishop f5. And it's quite funny, this kind of structural transposition. The thing is, black is very, very solid. He's got good pieces from a strategical point of view, a good bishop here. The only issue is the knights are somewhat awful, but he gets to coordinate them. It takes some time. White got rid of his bishop, and black immediately starts to regroup the knights. And once it arrives on c6, then black has solved lots of his problems, simply because this knight blocks the c-file, so there's no invasion on c7 or something. The knight also attacks d4, which is white's weakness, and I think white it's just an equal position. We see some further maneuvering, but there's frankly not much happening. Get one pair of rooks exchanged, and white goes to g6, but there's no threat really. It's just one queen. Some further regrouping. Problems here is how do you make progress? And this is actually applicable for both sides here. Black doesn't have any pawn break. He simply cannot open up the position or change the pawn structure in any way. But he's of course very solid with his rook on the open f file, and white only has got one break also, which is f4. Yeah, maybe h4, but it's mostly f4, and f4 is hard to play with the rook on f8. So we see in the game that Nakamura actually manages to get f4 in, but it's not doing so much. Yeah, and here draw was agreed, and this shows that there's probably really nothing to play for. If a fighter like Nakamura offers a draw, then there is nothing. Black has all kinds of possibilities. He can go to yeah, maybe here and attack this pawn. White's king is also somewhat exposed. You cannot easily open up further. I mean, let's just, for instance, if white would play f5, going active, then oops, then at the end there's this queen e1 check, which is very annoying. Could even argue that black is somewhat more comfortable in this position. Yeah, maybe black, what happens after knight fg6? Black has some pressure on these pawns. It's not so clear what white should do. There are also positional ideas like this, blockading f5. Yeah, black is certainly fine. Maybe you should have played on even. Yeah, sometimes it's difficult if you have somewhat the position like this, where you just sit and wait as black against a stronger player, and then you get the draw offer. You often just take it and don't think about the implications of the position. Maybe black is even better here. Alright, but all in all, not too exciting this game. Even less exciting was the game Caruana against Kayakin. Unfortunately, we have the Berlin again, which is really yeah, I understand why those players go for this line, but from a spectator's point of view, it's really nothing great to to watch and to do any comments on. Okay, check. So we have this famous Berlin Wall endgame, where black now has a ton of moves: bishop d7, h6, all kinds of moves. Yeah, king e8 is the old one, or the oldest one. h5. This idea is relatively new, to play this pawn 2 moves. h6 is also a move. Yeah, this is fairly well explored, this opening nowadays. What we can see, in fact, look at this. I was thinking about this position. This is what I saw during the broadcast. This is a very typical structure for this opening, and in fact I don't see at all what white is trying to do here. Black simply has got a perfect blockade set up with knight f5 and pawn to h4, and this is really some kind of advertisement for this h5 plan. It really kills off all that white might do, and I really don't see what white should try to do to make any kind of progress. Yeah, this was simply taken. Yeah, and now black has pretty nice knight here on e6, sitting there covering c7 and sort of yeah, blockading the e-pawn. It's not a classic blockade because it's not a pass pawn, but it's sitting very nicely in front of the pawn. And now a typical and good maneuver, rook to h5. This is simply directed against f4, f5. White would play f4. Then black can even think about this move, or alternatively go here. And now the rook and the knight both prevent the f-pawn from further advancing. Very typical maneuver. And black even manages to, look at this, very cute, manages to get both rooks on the 5th rank and attack the e-pawn. Yeah, white needs to protect it, and now black just sit and wait. So I'm not quite sure how many moves they made until they agreed.
Check.
Oops, there was even something happening. I wasn't even aware of that. I thought it was just a completely uneventful draw. I'm sorry. Knight d8, and white took here. Okay, let's see what happens.
Check.
Bishop g5. Okay, black of course cannot go back.
Checkmate.
Mate still wins even in such a dull position. Okay, so
check.
went here. Takes, rook d8. Interesting.
Check.
Rook d4. Yeah, cool move. The black has got the activity with the king, so white cannot exchange here, because after this it's a problem. Black's king is immediately threatening, and if white tries to keep the pawn, then at the end black is the one on trying to win. Maybe it's still a draw. Hard to figure out. Yeah, the thing is, just from a practical point of view, if you're white, and the opponent plays rook d4, you notice if you exchange rooks that you are in some kind of trouble, and the pawn endgame easily can be lost. Yeah, it's not like you have a draw in hand or something. You can easily lose it. So I wouldn't recommend to exchange rooks if you have a relatively easy rook endgame that you can draw. And in fact, black simply needs to attend those two pawns, and white just perpetually attacked them, and draw was agreed. This is just the much better decision from white's point of view. Instead of taking, even if it is some kind of forced draw, you don't really want to allow this. Okay, pretty uneventful. Unfortunately, in this opening, this happens rather often. Okay, next game, Hare Krishna against Anand, the Indian duel, and Hare Krishna playing knight f3. After this very sharp and interesting attacking game against Van Velde with e4, he returns to knight f3 and even plays g3 here. So some sort of Reti opening. Yeah, now we have a real Reti opening. Yeah, I played this opening myself as white, so I know a bit of about all this. Black setup, what Anand played here is very solid. Of course, it's kind of a London system with reversed colors, and this is known for its solid reputation, of course. Yeah, Queen b3 is a good idea to try to make some progress. Queen b6, and I don't really like how Hare Krishna is now continuing. He played knight d4, which is somewhat tricky, of course, because if black would take, then white can simply take here and win instantly. So knight is not blundered, and it attacks the bishop. Oops. Queen b6 and knight d4. Yeah, it attacks the bishop and threatens to demolish the pawn structure, so black needs to react. In fact, what I like more in this position is the move bishop to e3. I think that white has still hopes for trying for a very small advantage after this move. The idea is that the queen is simply attacked, and it needs to be exchanged on b3. And now white has got the half-open a file, which means that a7 is hanging, and black probably needs to go a6 at some point. And in this position, white can try for a little bit of something like this kind of stuff, going on those sensitive squares, Or another idea is to exchange on d5 and try e4, open up the position. It's not spectacular game coming up, obviously, but I think white can try for a bit without risking anything. Yeah, and the game knight d4 was played, and Vichy retreated the bishop, and now we have exchanging on d5. And white now actually played the queen exchange, which basically admits that you've got nothing. Typically, the side who exchanges queens and gives the opponent the double pawn is the one, getting into the getting onto the defensive. So white in this case, the double pawn is usually an advantage for the side who's got it, because the rook is open instantly, and the double pawn can be very useful here. You can advance it and play on the queen side without moving the original b pawn, which is used to set up this strong pawn formation against the bishop on the diagonal. So very often this double pawn is an advantage even. So what Anna did is very slowly increasing pressure on the queen side. See what happened. The b pawn march led to white displacing the knight. Black got a slight advantage here. It's not spectacular, but it is slightly better, simply with the space advantage and white having somewhat awkward pieces. Trying to regroup the knight on the way to d4, and in fact, a couple of moves later, Anand takes more space, while white cannot do much. Note that the rooks are nicely protecting the b pawn from the side, and the rook on a7 combined with the bishop has got some pressure on the a pawn. With this idea, trying to use the pawns. So still black is somewhat better. It's not so easy to tell. In fact, if you look at the continuation here, how black spoiled his advantage. Knight d4 is for once an active move, giving up the protection of the a pawn and initiating a longer tactical sequence, or let's say somewhat forced sequence. Anna now decided to take the pawn, which was answered with knight f3, and the idea was that knight e5 is a threat, and also d4 is a threat, and this is the more important threat, because then b7 would hang. Vichy now played rook e7 and the mentioned d4. If black now would play, let's say, knight e4, then white would take and even have an advantage. He got the pawn back, and there's knight e5 or knight d3 to e5 coming. So this is not good at all, but black has a good response, and he played this f4 using this strong bishop. So instead of doing a retreat and giving up the pawn, he's playing active moves. And white played g4, which is probably the best. Now black has two knights attacked, but of course the exchange is hanging, and Anna took it. And white just recaptured and will get one of the knights. And it certainly makes sense to play in a way that this knight is given up, as it doesn't look too great on h5. Anna now played knight e4, and this is interesting, but he also had a pretty good alternative in knight to e6. The idea is quite interesting. If white would take now, then black has the interesting option to sacrifice on f3, the exchange. White recaptures, and now knight d4. And in this position, black has got those 3 pawns for the piece. Of course, okay, white has got 4 against 3 on the king side, but this pawn formation is really sick. And I think this is interesting because it still should offer black some chances to play for a win, and it's still a very risk-free way to play. I mean, how should black ever lose this position? Probably will get even the f3 pawn. So this was an interesting way to play. In the game, as mentioned, he played knight to e4, takes, and now knight f6 going against the pawn and grabbing it. There was also knight c3, and also rook takes f3 again, this idea. But this was also an interesting way to play. Attacking the rook. Rook b2, for instance, rook a1, and rook c2. And now probably maybe here. Yeah, it's all these positions look somewhat slightly better for black, but it's not like black is winning instantly. White still has some solid setup here. The knight here is hard to get rid of. Okay, with an exchange sack, but not with normal means. And it's protected. This is also nicely protected. So black is certainly somewhat better, but maybe it's nothing too special. Yeah, in the game he went back, and we see that h4 now led to simplifications. And here, after this, in fact, after rook a4, the game was agreed drawn. I actually think that maybe black could have played on a bit. I'm not sure. I mean, black is not risking anything, and he could maybe play a couple of more moves. Maybe it's not too great, but why not continue for a bit? Let's say for instance, well, here draw was agreed, but let's say e3, for example, and yeah, black could maybe take here, and then try to use the e pawn. Not sure if you should do it instantly. If I play this, white has it quite nicely blocked. But maybe at some later stage, this is the general idea. Maybe, I don't know, activate the king. I mean, you could try on a bit. White has got the d pawn, so it's probably still balanced. The computer always is on about 000 here, or very low eval. Yeah, okay. Maybe they could have played on, but it's not very likely that it will be something else than a draw. Alright, so I still managed to do 20 minutes of not so exciting games. Can't help myself. There's still content in those games. Okay, so now for the decisive games. Let's start with Van Vele against Wang Hao. And quite surprisingly, Wang Hao plays a King's Indian. He doesn't play this often, I think. And he goes for pretty rare line, which is not regarded so well by theory. Not like it's bad or something, but it's not one of the main lines that black plays. The idea is to go knight e4 and simplify a bit. So let's say something like this is actually pretty solid for black. The idea can be to even play d5 later, exchange here, play e6, and black is really rock solid. Everything on white squares, good bishop, and yeah, it's fairly solid, more like a Slav than than a King's Indian. Okay, white played knight e1 here, which is probably the better move in terms of getting something going on the center. White intends to play e4, takes e4 under control, and we see that this happens. Black manages to exchange this bishop, and all this looks fairly standard. But now, okay, now here, very early on, we get a critical moment in the game. Probably black here should play some slow move that doesn't really change the position too much. Not quite sure what move. Something like this maybe, or knight a6 or something. Some sit and wait move. White is certainly slightly better. I mean, he's got the typical space advantage, and it's not like black is close to breaking with f5 and getting some attack. In the game he played b5, and while this maybe it is still okay, but it's really risky. White took, and now this. So yeah, black has sacrificed a pawn, and the idea actually must be to get this pawn back and have the central pawns, d and e pawn. In fact, in the game, he never managed to get this pawn back, and this really turned into a big problem. Played queen c4, rook e1. Yeah, and now black cannot take because of this move. And with the rook hanging, black
Check.
even needs to exchange. And yeah, this is just a completely winning endgame. It's not just the extra pawn, it's simply too much. White will push those pawns and promote on the queen side. This is why black cannot take now, and played some slow move, h6. And yeah, it's still the same, he cannot take. And white simply pushes the pawns, and also has got yeah, g5. He wants to get some activity going, but it really doesn't manage. White even could play knight h5 now. But he went rook a4, which was one idea about this a pawn push, driving the queen back. And now white went back to e2, and this opens up this great route. And here white is probably winning with good play. It's an extra pawn. It's the potential pass pawn. And this idea with planting the knight on c6, while black has basically no play. See these moves, and the knight is on the way to c6. Okay, some prophylaxis first. Yeah, some shuffling to gain some time on the clock. And now black played knight f3, and after this it's really completely over. Could try something else like this again, but white can play knight c6. He simply took his time with this move, but he can play this now, and is just very close to winning with this big advantage on the queen side. After knight f3, in fact, yeah, white also went here, and the knight is simply somewhat worse on f3 than on d3. Black went here, yeah, towards the king, maybe trying to get some last shot at the king. And, yeah, white has got a very strong pass pawn, and just pushes it.
Check.
Knight queen f3 check. Yeah, and if black would try to yeah, the problem, what I'm getting at is white is threatening b8 queen. If black would do some nothing move, let's say or back to f3, yeah, just for argument's sake, then white would promote.
Check.
And play this move. This is what I was getting at. So This is also why
Check.
he moved the queen. But still, what do you do about the b pawn? Yeah, just good technical play. F pawn is protected, and white would love to exchange queens, of course, and then just promote the b pawn.
Check.
Yeah, black exchanged and grabbed this, but now white has got knight e3 with tempo, and on f5 there's a great square. Yeah, the b pawn in combination with the d5 or f5 square is too much. So here we go. Black has no defense here. Also d6 is simply hanging. Tried rook b8, but after the capture on g7 now, yeah, black resigned. Problem is, what should he do? If he would recapture with the king, then there's just bishop c3 winning this, yeah, in exchange and with interest. And yeah, this has got two pieces hanging, so black loses a piece with no compensation whatsoever. Yeah, to be honest, I think this was an opening disaster. He really never got anything for this pawn, and yeah, maybe there's some precise way to get d5, but I'm not sure how you should do it. And then the queen side is simply so in such bad shape that that you cannot recover. This simply looks terrible for black. Yeah, good win for Van Vele. He managed to win the second game. He won against Lamy earlier, and now he's on 50%, which is really good against this field. So Van Vele recovered nicely. Yeah, he lost very badly to Carlsen, but he won 2 games afterwards. Great. Okay, so this was a good win for him. And now have a look at Aronian against Leko. This was unfortunately a very long game, and I only will show a couple of key moments. The Queen's Indian, and Aronian plays this very sharp pawn sacrifice. Black won the d5 pawn. White sacrificed it. It's not a blunder, and the idea is that black, yeah, needed to invest some time to get the pawn, and in fact his central pawn formation is not so great, as the d pawn is backwards, and white can very often gain more time on this knight, for example. Let's just have a look what happened. Yeah, this is quite cute. This knight is not hanging. If white would take now, then knight b4 would win this rook with the fork. So the queen moves again to attack the knight. It retreats, and now we see that white gets this move in and prevents black from advancing the d pawn. Yeah, e5, and yeah, here it's quite believable that white has decent compensation. You've got this pawn guaranteeing you a space advantage, and black has all kinds of holes in the position, so white certainly has compensation. We see that yeah, this was Aronian's idea. Yeah, we see this move, which is interesting. Leko wants to get rid of this bind and gives up a pawn for this. So I'm sorry. So we have this exchange, and now the tactical shot, knight takes e5, exchanging more pieces even. Yeah, white took here. If you would capture on b7, black can take here, and you're in a self pin with bishop takes b7. It's really not great for white. If you would recapture, then rook takes b7 is probably even somewhat better for black. If you count the pawns, he's one pawn up. So this is just better. Bishop takes, and queen d7. Yeah, now we see that the queen exchange, queen trade is unavoidable, and white has got the slightly better pawn structure. Those two pawns are weak, but of course, as compensation, black has got two bishops. He secured this bishop by dropping it back all the way. Yeah, so this is what I meant. It's knight and bishop against two bishops, but some weaknesses by black. And in fact, here Leko played f6, knight moves, and now he played rook d8, which is really a remarkable decision. It's a fairly typical decision for top level chess nowadays, but it's still a move that I probably wouldn't play. Okay, I'm not top level chess like those guys, but I wouldn't play this move anyway. What I'm getting at is rook d8. What he did. I'm sorry, rook d8. What he did. In fact, white just won this pawn, and of course he did see it. He didn't blunder this pawn. So the idea was to give up the weak pawn to get an end game with the two bishops as compensation for the pawn. And black has slight compensation for the pawn. Two bishops are nice, but still I'm really surprised why he did that, because white doesn't really threaten anything here. I mean, black can easily play a move like bishop c6, and I don't really see how white could get something great going here. As long as the rooks are on, there's also this counterplay ideas along the back rank. For example, if white, it's probably a stupid move, but if white tries to play against this pawn, there's simply always this idea as a possibility, and this is not exactly a bad bishop. So I'm not sure. I mean, was it really necessary to give up the pawn? I don't think so. I mean, in the game,
check.
It's clear that white is advancing on the queen side, and black really can only employ a sit and wait strategy. Yeah, there's frankly speaking not much going on. Black tries to stay active and exchange pawns on the king side if possible, and using his active bishops. So we continue, and it's really not much going on as mentioned. White has got this extra pawn, but it's not clear if it really amounts to much. So here's a critical position. In fact, if you analyze this with the help of the computer friend, it gives a pretty good line now for black, but this is probably not realistic to expect a human to play like this. And this is bishop f3 check, knight d5, and bishop g1. And this looks terribly risky, but it seems to work out. b5 takes on h2, and b6. It looks very dangerous, b pawn. But if white moves this bishop, there's always bishop a7, and in fact this seems to be a draw, something like this. And at the end, this pawn is falling. One point being that knight e3 is illegal in this position. Okay, but this is not really realistic to find this. What Leko did is was very understandable. He just grabbed b6 and got into opposite colored bishops, but now it's really hairy. Maybe it is losing already. The problem is those pawns are on dark squares, so white potentially wins them both. So he's got a potential pass pawn also on the king side, and also those pieces set up a barrier against the black king. So it's possible to maybe even promote one of those pawns on the queen side. In the game, he missed on one or two occasions a somewhat tougher defense, but it seems very critical now. Now this is probably a mistake. The computer wants to play something else. He wants to go. Where would he go? King here. Bishop d4 and king d5. Yeah, but white can take this line, but this is also just winning for white. I would say. Looks very good for white. Yeah, not sure that this is really an improvement. Yeah, I guess black is lost here. But it's those opposite colored bishops endgames are notoriously tricky. So without investing really lots of time, I'm always cautious. Yeah, this now is really winning, and Leko resigned. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he should have drawn this endgame. I mean, this endgame after he gave up the pawn. But I still feel it was necessary to even go into this pawn down position. And yeah, well, he lost, unfortunately. After winning such a nice game yesterday against Caruana, he went down in this type of position, which really should suit him. Okay, so what games are left? There's also, of course, Carlsen's game against Ivan Sokolov. So Carlsen leading the tournament together with Anand and Karyakin, if I'm not mistaken, against the tail ender, one of the tail enders, Sokolov, who really has a bad tournament. And okay, Carlsen plays 1e4 with Sokolov. You know that he's going to play e5. He always plays e5. And we've got a Rui. Sokolov doesn't play the Berlin though. He always plays those more full-blooded lines. And again, this Archangel variation that he employed against it was Caruana, right? Where he lost. Yeah, against Caruana. And Carlsen plays also with d3, a solid setup. Bishop to g5. And I had a quick look in the database. This is already a very rare position. It doesn't look illogical at all, but it's not a popular line. c3. And yeah, now Sokolov initiates a rather ambitious plan in the next couple of moves. Not this, but let's see. Yeah, he played this. He played b4, and this looks good at first sight because you attack the knight. This the capture, of course, looks bad, damaging the pawn structure, and this means that white needs to go back. So you think, okay, you win time by pushing the knight back, but you have a somewhat awkward piece on a5 yourself. And if you look what happens now, because he combined all this with playing g5, this means that with the bishop on b7, black has a pretty big hole on f5, which would be terrible if some knight would turn up there. And I don't really like this pawn formation on the queen side. I don't know, I'm probably slightly biased because I play the Rui as black, and I always prefer those setups with the bishop on e7, where it helps to protect my king a bit and is not exposed on the queen side. It looks active, but what is this bishop actually doing? We see after a couple of moves that white now has got this idea, and once it comes to f5, it's game over. Yeah, exchanged, and yeah, just slowly preparing also d4, and black cannot do much. He's got awkward pieces. Those pieces really don't put pressure on the center, and they're mostly targets. I don't really like the setup. So some normal moves. Knight to f1. Yeah, exchanged. Rook b8. So we got rid of the heavy pieces, and knight e3. Yeah, and I think that white is better anyway, because those pieces are simply badly positioned. Also knight, of course. But what he did now really, I think, made things even worse. He played first this, and now this g4 move. And if this is really necessary, then black is in deep trouble. Now knight d5, knight h4, and knight f5 is really around the corner. And what is this pawn formation? It's simply full of holes. Yeah, we see that white gets the knight to f5, and as mentioned, this is basically game over. I don't think this is a defensible position. It took a while, but Carlsen improved his pieces, while black really doesn't have much to do. This probably intends this move. He played it. So yeah, now d5. This is probably also not helping, opening up the position more, but it's just dreadful to defend this really difficult position against the world number 1. I think it even would be difficult to defend against world number 1000, but number 1 is really tough. So it opened up, and now you see the king is in a terrible crossfire. Yeah, just open up the position. The king is the target.
Check. Check.
Yeah, black even manages to grab this pawn. And here, in fact,
check.
Carlsen had an even quicker way to win the game with bishop to f5. He played knight to d5, which keeps a big advantage, but the other move was even a bit stronger. But it didn't really matter. White is winning in both cases. So played bishop back.
Check.
Bishop knight queen c6 was a somewhat tougher move, but it's lost anyway. And here black resigned simply because he cannot move. Bishop to d7 is the big threat, and no way to prevent it. If black plays some nothing move, then this is coming.
Check.
And white wins the queen, and probably mate is not far off with the extra queen and the very bad king position. So pretty straightforward win for Carlsen against the terribly out of form Sokolov. Sokolov lost this pretty poor game yesterday with white against Aronin in the Grunfeld, and this really didn't look good, and he didn't recover at all. Okay, so and now for the last game of this presentation. This is Giri against Hu Yifan. And Giri plays e4. He played e4 before in this tournament. It's not his main move, but he tries to mix first moves. And we get a dragon. which is not a standard line in Hu Yifan's repertoire. I think she is more of a Najdorf or Scheveningen type of position player. Okay, but the dragon. Surprisingly, g3 was now played. A rather tame line against the dragon. Knight c6 and knight to e2. This is White's idea. He wants to keep this piece on the board and put a knight on d5. Sometimes even this knight. You don't. He doesn't want to allow to exchange it. So if let's say he would play this move, then black could consider to simplify a bit by exchanging queens. It's not terrible for white, but it should help black with the defense to get one pair of knights off. So white retreats it, and she plays a quite interesting setup now. Bishop d7 and queen c8. So very early setting up this battery, but this is quite annoying for white. If white would castle now, then there's bishop h3, and this is certainly something that black is welcoming, exchanging off the bishop, because the d7 bishop is notoriously useless in those positions, and here it can be exchanged for this good bishop on g2, which supports the center and has potential influence on the long diagonal. In some cases, yeah, black can even dream of h5, h4, but this on a very good day you you manage to do that. Okay, but castling is not what white wants to do, so he played h3. I mean, white wants to castle, but you don't want to allow bishop h3. But h3 now means, yeah, how do you castle now? It's always hanging on h3. And in fact, after a couple of more moves, all very normal looking, yeah, black introduces this idea, which white wants to prevent. Rook b8, yeah, probably preparing this in the long run. Rook a2, yeah, this of course looks very artificial, but white wants to get off the long diagonal, which can be tricky. Yeah, knight c6 back. Yeah, this can be an idea. And knight d5. This is a typical idea in these positions, to put this pressure on the f6 knight and actually provoke an exchange on d5. The idea is, after the exchange, okay, first this move was played, but what I was getting at, okay, here it is especially dreadful because the knight needs to go to d8, but the idea is to open up this half open e-file and get pressure on e7. Of course white hasn't castled yet, so it's a long way off, but this is the general idea. Here taking on d5 is just crazy. You don't want to go to d8, so this is why she played a5. Yeah, here you would think that white should demolish the pawn structure. He played c3 though, but if you look at this looks very obvious. It's hanging. At first you think, okay, this must be great for white. What kind of pawn formation is this? But black has very good counterplay. She can play f5, she can play b5, and it's opposite colored bishops. So both sides play on opposing color complexes. There's simply too much activity going for black. You can castle, let's say, and then something like this, just for argument's sake. Those kind of active lines are possible, and yeah, this doesn't have any square, so this wouldn't net so much. But what he did, Giri c3, have a look. Now she breaks out with b5, and what's now? b3 is hanging. how does white react to this. He played queen back to d1, and now queen b8. Yeah, and suddenly black's got pressure against the b pawn. I don't think this is what white intended to achieve with d3. He covered it, and now a very strong plan by black. Takes knight e5, and we see the point. After, let's say, castles, what Giri played, the most natural move, she played the very interesting move a4, which at first it's not so easy to comprehend. What is this move doing? Okay, let's start with the easy ones. If white would take with a rook, then rook takes b3 is simply great for black. Yeah, this rook is hanging, and the whole pawn structure here benefits black. c5 is a weak square, and black's got active pieces, so it should be pretty good for Hu Yifan if white would take with the rook. Yeah, but what happens, let's say, on b takes? Black can go here, for example, and then put pressure on a4, d5, c3. There's this move coming, and this is a really unlucky piece. It's simply badly positioned. Black has quite good compensation here. In the game, however, we see a4, knight d4, and at first this looks very strong. I mean, this rook is attacked, and if it retreats, then white can take, or even play maybe knight c6 at some point. But black has a very strong answer. She just took on b3. Knight takes, and knight c4, very strong. Black has sacrificed the whole rook for the moment, but now this rook is attacked and it's not protected, and this knight is also attacked. If white would retreat the rook now, he played this move, funny, but if white would retreat the rook, let's say rook a1, then black simply captures here, and then has this fantastic b pawn, which is supported by the knight, and black has pretty much winning advantage here. Also note that this support is also coming, so yeah, great for black. So this is why Giri played the desperado move, knight c5. You don't want to allow black to capture on b3 to get the pass pawn. Yeah, okay, you need to take this. And now we returned, but black's got the great game now. Bishop is hanging, this is hanging. Black's got all the activity and the a pawn, and we see that she just took it. Yeah, trying to, oops, not there, activate the knight. Yeah, good try, get rid of the bishops, but black's very active now. Queen b2, and in this position there's another funny case where the computer wants to play a move that probably no human would come up with. She now played a3, which according to the computer and by mathematical standards, so to say, is a mistake. But what the computer wants to play is really something that, as mentioned, no human would come up with. The computer recommends here rook b8. Yeah, what about this, right? Yeah, white can take, and then the computer wants to grab here and says that yeah, black is completely winning. Still, I believe that human player would be very reluctant to get into this. If white moves the queen, then there's some ideas on g7. I don't know. It's very unnatural to play like this with little time on the clock. What she did is a good practical decision. She played a3, attacking the queen, and white needs to take. and now black can take here. She couldn't do this immediately because the queen was hanging, so you need to distract white's queen. And after this, we have a simplified position now, where black has an extra pawn, the extra c pawn, and simply enjoys a distinct advantage with no losing chances whatsoever. So black can simply press for a win here with no risk, and this is it is probably winning, but it also entails no risk at all. We see that some repetition to gain some time, and now we've got d against e pawn exchange, and now it's a pure free c pawn. Yeah, this intense queen g7 to get rid of the blockade on c3. And here Giri decided to, that he doesn't want to fight the c pawn, and he sacked the exchange. Yeah, covering e6. And what is this position? Yeah, I think it should be a win for black, but it's not a trivial win. What surprised me a bit is that he actually allowed with queen e4 the queen trade, because I think this is definitely winning. It's trickier than you first might think, because there are some aspects of the position that are not so great. Black's got the e pawn on e6. This is slightly weak. And what is black's winning plan? One winning plan would be to go all the way to the f pawn and attack it on the second rank. And this is basically almost the only plan that black has. Let's see what happens. White just moved the f pawn.
Check.
It's not much happening up to a certain point.
Check. Check.
Yeah, black managed to get optimum activity, but here it is now difficult to make any progress. How would you make any progress? This bishop stays on the long diagonal, and this king always keeps g3 protected, and there's something like a wall here so that the king cannot enter. How should black proceed? In fact, she played this very nicely, starting with h6, preparing g5, and this break actually guarantees that black will get a free e pawn. This is exactly what happened. Yeah, here white decided to play with the h pawn and not with the g pawn. He could also take on g5, after which black gets it back this way and then pushes the e pawn, which at the end will promote together with the rook, or with the rook support. So king f3, and white now has got the h pawn as the counterplay, but it's simply not enough.
Check.
And now the e pawn is moving forward. Yeah, this is funny. But okay, we still have the e pawn, and it's completely winning. White has no alternative. It's just king moves, as of course the bishop needs to stay to cover the e pawn. And here, in fact, white needs to give it up. Yeah, this is important. Cannot take here, of course, because
check.
This check. So this is why e2. And what is important to note, that in fact this happened in the game, that this is a winning endgame and not a drawn endgame. Of course, rook against bishop is a draw in general, and the important point is that white's king needs to reach the opposite colored corner, so king on a1, bishop on b1. This would be a draw, but the problem is it is not on a1 and never will get there. And in this position, in fact, it's I think even a forced mate, because this bishop is getting lost. He's simply he will simply get trapped on the back rank. So something like this is the problem. And if you go somewhere else,
check,
then simply this kind of tempo move, and you win the bishop next move, and mate a couple of moves later. In the game, he played this
check,
still, and after this rook check, resigned. It would simply continue like this, gaining a tempo, bishop moves, and then somewhere here attacking the bishop and threatening the checkmate, and black mates or wins the bishop. So the first win for the former women world champion Hu Yifan in this tournament, beating Giri with black in a pretty good game. I think it's pretty well played. She really outplayed him here in the middle game, and I feel really good for her that she managed to win a game in this really tough field. She really, if you look at those little interview snippets that the website is having, they always do this little kind of interviews after the game, just like a minute or 2 minutes sometimes. She still seemed very in very good spirits even after all those losses, and it's good to see that she managed to win a game. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a long video again, but I think it's really good chess content. It's not too many dull draws or quick draws. Today even some longish end games which you could analyze even deeper, but I already am on close to 70 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow with the next round. Bye.